Can't. Okay.
Can you hear us, Trina?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so I noted that there's 3 items listed on the consent agenda. Asked if any commissioners had anything they'd like to remove. No commissioners requested anything be removed. And I had a motion. Did
So
someone?
moved.
Okay, so I have a motion to accept it from Commissioner Tinkersley,
Second.
a second from Commissioner Elmer. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, passes. Thank you. Included in the packet are accounts payable and purchasing reports. Are there any questions on that report?
Nope.
All right, no questions. We're going to move on. We have no employee introductions today. Next, we have consultant and partner reports. So we asked Brent Keller, our forester, to please update the commission on the forest management activities, and I believe he's on Zoom. Brent?
Okay, I'm trying to get in here. There we go. Trying to use my camera for one time here.
Look at you.
Technically.
You even blurred the background. Good job.
Yeah, well, that was the first thing I had to figure out. Thank you, Mayor. 2024 stumpage sales, what's left to do there on the 300 401 road sale is the reforestation that's scheduled for this coming winter. 2025 sales, Stimson, of course, is holding the 350 sale until 2026. That's a 2-year contract. They are entirely complete on the 730 sale. Olson Brothers completed that sale. Almost 400 loads were shipped to Stimson and other destinations. Final volume came in about 7% over the original estimated volume from the cruise, and the value was about 2% over the estimated final dollar value. And the reason those don't track together is that we nailed the cruise volume for the fir, which was most of the volume, but there was more hemlock than we had in the cruise. On these minor species, we had more hemlock. We had alder that we didn't have at all in the cruise. We just didn't happen to hit it with our sample plots. And then there was, maybe 4 or 5 loads of cedar when we only thought there were like 2 loads. And so that's why those don't track like, in a linear fashion, because we cut more volume that was lower valued. And so even though you got a higher final volume, the final value did not track up with it because those were lower valued species. So,
Brent, question for you. The cedar,
Sure.
is it higher value than the fir?
yeah, that was not that actually brought it up a little bit, but
Okay.
that was only a small fraction. But yeah, no, it's the fixed value, because we fixed the prices on those species because there is all this noise and it can be really hard to pin down the cruise volume. We fixed cedar at about $1,000 a thousand, and hemlock and the alders fixed at like $200. So quite a difference there.
Not even worth the trucking almost.
Project work's complete on
They only pay that.
that sale as well. And reforestation is also scheduled for this coming winter for the 730 sale. We're currently, the main current operation is surveying the recently planted units to determine if interplanting will be necessary, along with our normal full plants this coming winter. Fire season ended officially for Northwest District 3 on October 10th. It was in this particular specific region, it was a very mellow fire season as far as temperatures and fuels and actual fires went. So that was good. And at the next month's meeting, at the November Commission meeting, I'll present the review of the 2025 program. I have the 2026 harvest recommendations and the proposed Mason, Bruce, and Girard 2026 budget. Any questions?
Tom, do you have a question?
Nope,
Nope.
thank you.
Anybody else?
All right. Thank you very much.
Brent, thank you.
Sure.
The price went up. You were
Yeah.
concerned last month.
Well, he answered.
Yes, he did. He knew you were gonna ask.
Yeah. You said he would answer. And he did.
Next, we have a report from interim city manager Adam Garvin. He's gonna update the commission on city activities. Hello, Adam.
See you guys again.
Yeah.
Give me just a moment here.
It was a lot of clicking. All right, you're on, Adam.
All right. First, thanks for having me tonight. It's my first presentation to you guys as interim city manager. Been on board since the middle of August, and this is our semi-annual report about what's going on around the city. There's a lot of information in this document. I'm not going to read every slide verbatim, but I believe you guys have the slide deck in your packet, and happy to jump into more detail. I can answer questions as they come up throughout the presentation, or we can do it at the end, whatever your guys' preference is. I'm happy to meet. Maybe. Tap that top button one time. Oh, there we go. Oh, it went a
Only
couple more
one
times.
time.
There we
There
go.
you go.
So the 28th of August, 10 days after coming on board, we had a special called strategic plan review and goal setting session that the acting city manager, who is the HR director, Vicky Hedges, and I facilitated. We went through our comprehensive MacTown 2032 strategic document that was adopted in March of 19. That took about a year and a half to formulate before it was formally adopted, and that hadn't really been looked at since then. Through that process, it kicked out these 5 top goals for the city to work through. So on the top of that list, which was a clear #1 candidate, was develop a realistic work plan for planning based on workload capacity. And that's talking about the long range work plan. Engineering fits into that as well. So planning is called out in that goal, but it also has some ramifications for engineering just with how those departments collaborate on projects. Implement consistent customer service hours across the city. So that's something I'm working on right now. Talked with John about how the change in work hours here has worked with Water and Light. I've talked with some other city managers and county administrators on how that's working. I also tasked the executive team of bringing me back some feedback individually for their departments. But the goal is to get every customer facing counter at the city on the same hours. So there's outliers to that would be different than this organization, just because we have park and rec and we have library and things like that. So it's not like the city shuts down on whatever those hours aren't, but it's for that customer facing counter. If you need to go to City Hall or the PD or the CDC, you just know that the city of McMinnville's counters are open for X and Y hours. My intention is to land on something by the 1st of November and then implement that Jan 1, just so we have everybody can live their current schedule through the holidays, and then we have a clean break on Jan 1. Review recruitment strategies and guidelines for committees. So we're gonna have a work session on November 12th, which is a Wednesday. Normally we meet on Tuesdays, but the 11th is Veterans Day. We're gonna go through every city committee, looking at it, if it's state mandated, charter mandated, or at council directive, what the scope is, what the times they meet, and if there's capacity to pick up in our organization by not having so many standing meetings, or maybe some committees need to meet more often. Just kind of looking at it holistically, letting council look at it as a policy body. The last time committees were looked at was during that strategic plan effort through 17 and 18. So it's been almost a decade. Just time to do a status check with committees. Review Park and Rec SDC fees for non-residential projects. That's been a goal of a few policy members of the policy body, is looking at SECs for commercial and industrial projects. That's probably I don't know, I would say the last goal to hit on this list of the timing of how they come to be, but just figuring out we have some big commercial things with the Linfield property site, the potential at the innovation campus, and so making sure that we're capturing that if that's the direction of the policy body and staying in front of that and not reactive to it after we have a major commercial or industrial development. And then build a new pool and community center. As you guys know, there's the bond major on the ballot, so we wanted to make sure that stayed on there, just so that lives on past the November vote, regardless how that goes. We have identified that the pool and the community center through our 2019 facility study are well past their usable lifespan and their current rendition. So if this isn't successful, we need to look at what is going to be successful moving forward. We had the day of service this last Saturday. I know a few of you participated in that, and thank you for that. That's to honor the city's birthday and just bring community together to help clean up. So we're going to hopefully make that an annual event, I believe, under Mayor Morris. And that was facilitated with Visit McMinnville and Commissioner Macy Baker here. So thank you for your guys' help on that. Human resources. So the LOC conference is an annual conference throughout the state. This year was in Portland, and the city was successful in getting the CIS Safety Award. And that was through a 13% increase in our best practices score. So that's a nice highlight. It also means we don't see as big as insurance rate increase as we could. Continuing to develop the volunteer handbook. The employee handbook got updated, so just kind of going through policy and procedure there. Executive team annual evals were done, and obviously hiring me is in this last 6 months has been a lift to transition city manager from Jeff to an interim, and then after the first of the year, we'll look at a city manager recruitment process, as well as after the bond, we'll evaluate the park and rec director vacancy. They went out for 2 hirings and were unsuccessful in both of those. And so when I came on board, I wanted to pause until we got through this bond, just so we gave a little bit more stability to the work plan of that director when they come on board and check one unknown off the list. So that's where we're at with human resources. The PD purchased a pole camera through some leftover 2024 trailer surveillance purchase dollars, and working with Water and Light on potentially putting that to use. You guys will see that in upcoming meetings. A big thing that was not in this year's budget when the city went through the budget process was about $25,000 worth of handguns we had to buy. So that was just solidified through a budget amendment this last council meeting last week. And the reason for that was the SIG P320, I believe it was flagged by DPSST, which is our training outfit through the state. And so we're going to Glock 47, which is a pretty widely used firearm around the county. So that gives some standardization to our department. Everybody will have the same handgun, as well as we'll be able to, everybody in the county pretty much uses that platform as well. It's a proven platform.
Question, Adam.
Yeah.
What happens to the old gun?
I believe they get surplus. I don't know exactly, but typically that's what happens to them. I can dig into that though and get back to you.
Thank you.
And the larger projects is obviously dog issues, not just the ones that have hit council meetings, but we see other dog bite issues in the park system and just around neighborhoods. I know I talked to court this last week and they had quite a few dog cases just in the docket that weren't related to the wolf dog incident. So that continues to be an issue. And then migration to the new records management system, which we hope to go live in Q1 or beginning of Q2 in calendar 26. And hiring process, we had longtime captain Tim Simons retire. And then we had his replacement come on board the following Monday. So Tim was out Friday. The new captain was sworn in that Monday. Great guy, has a good sense of humor, and happy to see him go into that role. Captain Simons was over detectives to get Dan some more exposure with the department and the community. He's going to be over patrol. And then Captain Fessler is going to move to detectives just to try and help expedite that onboarding process, as how he blends into the community and things like that. Community development. We want to continue to work on process improvement and seeing how that planning, building, and engineering can all work in unison, and maximizing the state's e-permitting software, Estella, and giving the ultimate goal would be to have an online interface that people could track their permits and they'll understand the workflow of their permit when it comes in and they make that application. So part of that is through some grants. We do know that we got awarded these 2 grants. We don't know the amount we got awarded for those grants yet. When I had to submit this for the packet, and I still don't know that as of today, but should know that here in the next few weeks. And then the 3rd grant that we applied for was for the flow charts and process improvement. So that's about $100,000 grant. But continue to try and get, better processes for the community, and our partners that work through that building, and continue to look for ways that we can be more responsive from a customer service standpoint, and those city hours is part of that as well. Special projects. This is the most popular thing we've posted on Facebook all year as a city, is the McMinnville Landing, formerly the Innovation Campus. And that'll be at a work session tomorrow night to talk about infrastructure feasibility analysis and the final report documents being prepared. So I do know that there's some consultant language in there around some water and power infrastructure, but at the end of the day, that is still just a consultant's opinion, and it's up to Water and Light to dictate what they need there. So it's more of a placeholder than, the definition we're working off of. But exciting opportunity. It's just going to take a lot of infrastructure to get up off the ground. So this is, to me, the easier part, and not that it's been a short process, but at least we have all 3 property owners around the table. They've agreed on their commercial to industrial split, which has been a heavy lift the last couple of years. And now we know our path forward of what we need for infrastructure. This is just, it looks like a lot of words. I'm not going to go through all that, but basically our current long-range planning and our current planning as far as development goes. Our natural resources been on long-range planning for a while, and that should come to fruition end of calendar Q1 26 or beginning of Q2. We're going to go through the long-range planning full document in a work session in December, and council will provide some direction as far as what they want wrapped up first, but that one's pretty well baked. And so my recommendation to council is going to be take care of all your low-hanging fruit that's at 90% before you start trying to pivot on some other things. The landscape code amendment that came to council this last meeting did not pass, and they look to bring that back after that committee work session and have some more dialogue around that. The Southwest area plan is 640 acres in that southwest area, Redmond Hill to Peavine to Old Sheridan Road, all that vacant land out there. And obviously it would have to be annexed in by the property owner. But that is land we brought in with our UGB amendment. And the one hurdle to that is there's gonna be substantial infrastructure needs to be out there. And so it's not just when that plan's done that it's ready to build. The policy body will have to identify how they want to fund that infrastructure need. And I don't know an exact number on that yet, but I just know it's a big number. And then the land use efficiency measures, that was, this last council meeting, they decided not to pursue a commercial, more commercial land in that. So that's moving forward and needs to be adopted by March 1st of 26, and it's on track for that. Our current planning, we have a multifamily housing on 26 acres out on the old Baker Rock site. So there's 3 different lots out there that the Baker brothers own in one fashion or another. And they're wanting to bring some multifamily into that. Pool Farms is the organic matter processor that's kind of been in an incubator site out at Ramsey McPhillips' place. And they have a spot off Riverside Drive. They're looking to get rezoned and get their proper permits to launch a more robust operation out there. Evergreen, the Stoller Group, McMinnville Properties, just broke ground on their 5-story, 118-room hotel. Pretty exciting times for that project, and that was on a visionary document over a decade ago. So nice to know that it's been through multiple owners and still is getting to the finish line on that whole vision of that complex and campus. And then Valley Vista is 96 affordable housing units on 5.8 acres of land. That's that property that's you might have seen in the paper a time or two about traffic studies behind the Northwest logging site, 3 Mile Lane. Those are kind of the big hitters in the planning world right now. Park maintenance. We're going to work on a pilot project for City Park, and we have the PO signed for that with a contractor to come in and do some brush clearing. Our internal staff will do some pruning during the typical pruning season when the trees go dormant, and work on improving some sight lines, making it easier to promote safer behaviors and facilitate easier policing of that area. So we'll see how that works from a safety and enforcement standpoint, and potentially move that through the rest of the park system. The downside to that is, you do lose some brush and lose some height on some shrubs and stuff, but the proactive approach is that you save costs on being able to maintain safety behaviors. The other thing I'm looking at with that is with existing infrastructure, if there's ability to swap out some of the lighting type and Kelvin so you get to a brighter bulb to increase visibility down there. And I think that plays into the feeling of safety. You have the same amount of light fixtures, but they're producing a little bit brighter light, so it's not so gloomy. Senior Center celebrated its 30th anniversary being open earlier this month, and we continue to see a rise in our rec sports programming, and we got over 900 kids for K-6 grade soccer, which is the highest number since COVID. So nice to see that Joe Dancer continues to see growth down there. And then obviously the heavy lift of the CPR bond that'll be on your November 4th ballot for any city resident voter. And there will be an additional outreach session by the PAC on October 25th. It's a Saturday at 3 p.m. The previous town hall was held in the evening, so they pivoted to do this one at a different time just to try and get a different demographic there. And I'll be there briefly just to answer city specific questions. Being a city staff member, I can't speak to any yay or nay language. I just need to keep my opinion neutral. And last session, I was answering questions around our transportation bond history, when it expires, when our previous one expired, and some questions around stormwater and the appetite of the policy body to bring that online. But any park and rec specific questions get referred to the PAC members in the room. Big public works projects was the Cypress and Fellows paving. that came in a little better than we had anticipated, and so there was an amendment to pave instead of just that Cypress Fellows area. We actually got Cypress down to second. So if you're out driving around, you got some nice new blacktop out there. And it was nice to bring that project in under budget and increase the size and scope of the project. And then the ODOT 88 curb ramp improvements is something you'll see moving along 99, and that's, you know, completely funded ODOT thing. It's not a city directive, it's their highway, so we're just trying to make it more accessible. New airport manager. This is the first time the city's ever had a full-time airport manager. Before him, it was a part-time manager that was mostly remote, came in I think 1 day a week, and before that it was just basically staff that it was held with the city engineer, and then he delineated out to other staff. So John comes to us from Salem. He was there for a number of years, and before that he actually lived in McMinnville for about a decade as well, and his wife is tied into the cancer center out there at the hospital. So they have some local roots. They don't currently live in McMinnville. They have some property out towards Dallas, but excited to see what he does from an economic development standpoint at the airport, and just having a full-time staff member that can monitor behaviors and work with neighbors and try and make that more of a regional asset than just a basic GA airport with a couple of runways. Library updates. Summer reading is a big thing for the library. It's pretty awesome to see kids read over 2,000 hours this year. With the adults, you know, they logged over 9,200 hours, 7,500 books. From a safety standpoint, through a CIS grant, the library got a few cameras installed, and that's helped with some behavior issues inside the library, as well as some accountability from behaviors inside the library, and continue to look at improvements we can make there. Any questions?
We're good.
All right,
Thank you, Adam.
thank you.
And Adam, I found this very interesting and very well done. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. My first one, so
We did good.
Good job.
thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
All right.
Next, we have OMEU Executive Director Jennifer Jolly. Oh, she's here. I was gonna expect you on Zoom. I didn't see you in the audience.
Hello.
Nice to
How
see
you
you,
back
Jennifer.
my phone?
Oh, no, it's interesting. Interesting work. Thanks for inviting me. John had asked me to come and kind of give you an overview of what the legislature did in the energy and utility space over the session. Is there a clicker? Or... Great. Thank you. So first of all, just to give you the overview, the legislature dealt with over 3,000 bills that were introduced, and of course not all of them got very serious consideration, but it's hard to discern what they're going to be doing with it when it gets introduced. So we're looking at everything and getting ready and seeing where the bills get referred. In the end, there were 640 bills that passed both chambers and were sent to the governor. So many were enacted, and most will become law January 1 is when they'll take place. One of the key themes in the legislature, not just in the utility space, was affordability. There was a lot of discussion about the investor-owned utilities rate increases over the last several years. There's a group called the Citizens Utility Board, or CUB, which is kind of a watchdog group over the IOUs. And they proposed a number of bills, including this one, House Bill 3179, the Fairness in Affordability in Residential or Fair Energy Act, trying to get at that rising cost. One of the interesting things is it was referred to Commerce and Consumer Protection Committee rather than the Energy Committee, where we usually see these types of bills. So many of the committee members were pretty unfamiliar with some of the things you were discussing earlier along the principles of rate making. And so there was a lot of education that took place in that committee just because they were not accustomed to dealing with utility bills. Some of the provisions in there included prohibiting winter rate increases, requiring that the PUC look well beyond your traditional items in terms of what goes into rates, such as what is the cost of living, how many people are on energy assistance, how many have overdue balances, and all those are to somehow be factored into the rates. Also, the IOUs are supposed to do multi-year rate plans rather than having a rate increase every year, which I thought was kind of an interesting approach. And then they also listed a number of categories they wanted to see broken out for ratepayers. They want to know how much of their rates are going to wildfire, what percentage is going into dealing with insurance, and kind of providing more transparency on the rates. And again, this only applies to investor-owned utilities, but I thought you might be interested as rate makers in what the investor-owns are going to be doing. Additionally, there was a bill looking at performance-based rate making. So right now, the rates are set through a formula that's looking at capital investments and really maximizing the returns for the investor-owned utilities based on that. And so this is taking a much different approach, and there's going to be a consultant study leading an investigation at the PUC of this type of rate making, which is, I guess, been instituted in Hawaii. Additionally, there was a bill that passed that increased the amount of energy assistance for low income customers from 20 to 40 million. And of course, that's paid by other ratepayers. So PGE actually didn't even support that proposal. This wouldn't be available for any consumer-owned utilities. There was a bill related to data centers and how any infrastructure that might be needed to serve the power needs of data centers, that to ensure that residential ratepayers are kind of walled off from the impacts of that infrastructure, and that there was special rates that apply to them. And of course, Google, Amazon, they opposed the bill, but somehow they were able to get it passed. That was another CUB bill, the Citizens Utility Board. Representative Gamba proposed a bill trying to promote the idea of grid enhancing technologies. Some of these I think are pretty standard in the industry, like reconductoring work, where you're taking the transmission line and just increasing the capacity in the line along the same route so that it has less impact. But I guess these are kind of the low-hanging fruit besides building big transmission builds. And so this is, again, looking at what the investor-owned utilities need to be doing in this space. And so they're supposed to look towards GETs instead of building new lines when it's cost effective. There were also some, there was a bill that passed, again, by Representative Gamba. He's the vice chair of the Energy and Environment Committee. Proposed a bill that would kind of streamline things at the Energy Siting Council, which is the body that approves transmission and building of generation in the state. So trying to make things easier. There's a lot of hurdles that get put up by opponents, environmental groups primarily, to building new renewable developments. This one changed, again, this is primarily just going to impact the investor-owned utilities, something that the solar industry promoted to change the purpose standard. That's the Public Utility Regulatory Policy Act, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. That's a federal act that was passed in the 70s that requires certain builds of renewable, small scale renewable generation for energy. And so it increased the threshold. Right now, the PUC had limited it at 3 megawatts for solar, and it bumped it up to 10 megawatts, and they can use a standard contract that is simpler and guarantees them a certain negotiated rate so that it's less administratively burdensome to the developers. So this is one of their priority bills that passed. There was also legislation that passed on microgrids, just trying to encourage microgrids. We got some amendments to make sure that they didn't really impact us, other than saying if the local government opts to designate microgrid zones, including like within a consumer-owned utility territory, they could do so with your approval as a COU governing body. So ensuring that these were optional things. But the investor-owned utilities under like 2065, House Bill 2065, are now going to need to kind of work with the proponents of these microgrid projects and provide them data and help them. Ultimately, they'll make the decision whether to allow the interconnection, but the IOUs didn't really like this concept. With respect to the Oregon Department of Energy, you may know that you fund them through the energy supplier assessment. That's something that all energy users pay. And it increased 13.5% this year in the budget. And this is something that is a constant a problem. Yes, John is a vocal advocate, trying to decrease that. So much of what is, which is done by the Department of Energy, really don't have any direct benefits. So to us. So anyways, we continue to monitor this. I think there's going to be more pressure given the state of the general fund to push more of the spending in that agency from the state general fund to these user fees or the energy supplier assessments. So we could see more pressure there, I guess. But we try and make the connection between the energy supplier assessment and for COUs, particularly the ratepayers, that basically we just pass these costs on to our ratepayers, which got a little bit more traction this year, but still it didn't really change the result. One of the big bills that all of local governments, school districts, cities, counties, spent a lot of time on, which of course on the other side was labor's top priority, was unemployment benefits for striking workers. Senate Bill 916, that ended up passing. And despite a lot of vocal opposition and controversy, I'd say it was probably one of the most contentious bills of the legislative session. But it will definitely have impacts if there is a strike on your city government. There was in the employment space, there was a bill passed about unlawful employment practices related to age and not asking about the applicant's age until after you've completed your initial interview, and clarifying that it was a high priority in the labor area for AARP. This one we're spending quite a bit of time on. BOLI, the Bureau of Labor and Industries, is going to have some listening sessions actually starting next week on the implementation of this bill. We put in testimony against it. Again, this was one that the school boards and the counties and the cities and a lot of folks in government were opposed to, but it did end up passing, squeaking through the legislature. And there's a lot of questions about what it means for public bodies like utilities, public utilities. It will allow or require the prevailing wage to apply for certain off-site manufacturing rather than just the on-site job, traditional public works. And so the rulemaking is going to be aimed at, discerning what's in and what's out. So I think I've talked to Sam a little bit about it, and I think we have a strategy to propose to the agency that would, I think, pull us out of that, at least as an electric utility. I think on the water side, you don't have as clear of a path. So pay attention to that, I guess, from both sides. The state legislature also repealed the state wildfire map. This is something that was done on a bipartisan basis. There was a lot of controversy about the classifications of the risk zones, high, medium, and low, and what that was going to mean for the homeowners in terms of requiring home hardening and also the ability to get homeowners insurance. And so they ended up just giving up and pulling the bill out. I know your utility looks to that map a little bit to work on your wildfire plan, which is required. So I think there's going to be still a state hosted map, but not being used for this purpose. They also passed a number of funding measures to try and get at mitigation monies and building up resilience. Didn't go as far as folks would like, but they made some progress on that. They put a tax on nicotine pouches, which bears no relationship to wildfire, but that's what they were able to agree on. And then taking some of the interest earnings from the rainy day fund and changing the forest products harvest tax. So that was a big development. I think, again, there was a work group focused on that, but it didn't amount to the level of revenues that they were seeking. So it'll be interesting to see how it survives, or if it survives in this new budget climate. These are bills that I just wanted to highlight because they didn't pass in the session, but they were very much in the big discussion points, and just for your awareness, because some of them may return. This wildfire safety certification bill was a high priority of the electric cooperatives, and also the investor-owned utilities. And it would basically be a seal of approval from the PUC that you're following your wildfire plan, and the PUC has kind of signed off on it. It would be optional for consumer-owned utilities, so that was one thing we kind of made sure of. The co-ops were willing to submit to that kind of review just because their liability situation is so grave that they were willing to have the PUC give them that, and they thought it would help with their insurance and those issues that we don't have as big of an issue in the municipalities as some of these non-governmental and investor-owned utilities have. But the trial lawyers didn't like the bill, and so it ended up dying in the end. The IOUs also wanted to do something that has been done in the state of California, that would be a fund that would be set up that victims of utility caused wildfires could collect damages from. if they agreed not to sue. It was only certain damages, the punitive damages wouldn't be coming from this fund. But that was a complete non-starter for the trial lawyers, and they never even had a hearing on the bill. It was set for a hearing, and then when they found out all these victims were going to come testify, it was pulled from the agenda right before the hearing. There was another bill. This is actually Senate bill, not House bill, 926, where the trial lawyers put some amendments on a different bill that was moving on this topic that basically said the investor-owned utilities couldn't recover any sort of claims. If they have negligence claims from wildfire, they couldn't look to the ratepayers to collect it. This is the shareholders that were going to have to cover all of that, and also that ratepayer funds couldn't even be used to replace infrastructure that was damaged by a fire. Also prohibiting the payment of shareholder dividends while these lawsuits were pending. And this is kind of getting at the idea of why is Pacific Power just dragging things out in the courts? And there was a lot of victim testimony about that. It really has to do, of course, with the 2020 wildfires, and none of these bills were divorced from that, even though they were supposed to be prospective. So we'll see if they come back. It doesn't seem like the policymakers have much of an appetite for dealing with it, despite it being such a huge issue. There was also a bill, this was really promoted by the Renewable Northwest. We just talked about it with Representative Gamba at our annual meeting last week. He still intends to propose a bill that would create a state transmission authority that would be an entity to allow the designation of transmission lines of statewide significance. And the entity that would put these designations together, really, it didn't have any expertise from the utility industry. There's a lot of renewable developers and environmental interests. So we had some issues with the bill. We also noticed that the initial funding for the authority was basically going to be a charge on existing large industrial customers like the steel mill to fund the authority. I don't know what the prospects of this are, but it's getting a lot of conversation. I don't know that it's really a state issue. I mean, it's more of a regional issue, and BPA is, of course, the one who's making a lot of these decisions, but they're getting a lot of I don't know, kind of criticism, I would say, just because they're so slow. So that's the issue. And the queue for interconnections to the BPA transmission system is humongous, just because there's been so much growth.
Yeah, but there's going to be a reform coming from the queue, because most of it, a lot of it is just speculation. People want to get themselves in the queue so they get a spot, but they don't really have a project yet.
Right. So BPA is trying to make some fixes there to require that they're more viable financial commitments and such like that. Small modular reactors. There were also some bills that would have particularly allowed for a demo project in Umatilla County, that the voters would approve a site certificate if one was issued. There's a county commissioner there who's really interested in small modular reactors, because right across the river, there's a lot of that going on in Washington, and he sees it as a big development opportunity for the state. And of course, we have NuScale in Corvallis, which sets, is a big leader in small modular reactors. So right now there is a prohibition on developing nuclear in Oregon. So this is trying to get at that. I think there'll be a study bill next year proposed to warm the legislature up to the idea. There was also a bill that got a lot of public interest. A lot of people came down to testify that would create a constitutional right to a clean, safe and healthy environment, which of course kind of opens the state up to a lot of liability for failing to meet that standard. So the business community was very opposed to this idea. There was some talk that it would be a ballot measure. I thought it was filed, but I'll have to look into that. But it may be back at the ballot, which would be interesting to see how the business community responds to that. Advanced clean trucks. This was something that DEQ was going to do to require. It was basically based on a California program by their California Air Advisory Board, and we would adopt the same approach and kind of cut off the number of combustion engines to get to these zero emission big trucks, which of course require a lot of electricity to charge. And there's a lot of concern about that. This is kind of the cart before the horse in terms of the infrastructure necessary to make this work. And the Trucking Association, of course, was saying that we're not ready for this yet. So they ended up, the agency ended up pushing it forward for 2 years, delaying it by 2 years. And then, of course, I don't know, the Trump administration, I think, is challenging a lot of the California rules that this was based upon in the first instance. So I think it'll probably be a while before we're to this stage. There was also a bill related to community renewable grant program. OMEU was pointing out that we don't do a lot of community renewable grants because we don't have a lot of renewable energy needs because we are served by BPA primarily. And so they proposed some amendments. This is an ODO, Oregon Department of Energy program, that would allow more grid resilience type projects. And that was something that certainly our utilities would be able to take advantage of. In the end, there wasn't really any new funding provided, so the amendments were not made, but this may come back in the future. This was a bill, one-stop shop for energy efficiency. This is kind of, we saw more of a ODO takeover of a lot of the work that our utilities tend to do, which is they would create a call center and a clearinghouse at the state level. So kind of a top-down approach, trying to help homeowners and others who are looking for energy efficiency grants. But of course, it's funded by the Energy Supplier Assessment. And to us, it just seemed like a lot of infrastructure for something that wasn't really needed, given that things are likely to slow down in terms of federal assistance and federal grants. And then finally, just point out a few things that are likely to come up for sure in the next short session. It's a 35-day session. They're really going to be focused on budget adjustments that'll likely be necessary due to some of the federal actions impacting the Oregon Health Plan. The legislature has told the agencies to develop cut lists, and so they'll be discussing that in November when they come in for their pre-session legislative days. And as I was pointing out earlier, I think there could be moves to kind of move things more to the user fee side of things rather than the general fund to free up the general fund. So we'll be looking at that. Oregon Business and Industry is really pushing for a cap and invest carbon pricing program. And this is kind of ironic because, of course, they killed it the first time it was proposed a couple of years back and led to the walkout in the state legislature. And but in this case, they're seeing it as kind of the less bad alternative because the agency acted under an executive order to put in a climate protection program, which they see as far less flexible and more costly to the businesses. For us, we're not subject to the climate protection program that's really focused on natural gas and the industrial emission intensive industries. So for us, we're not really happy to be pulled into the cap and invest conversation because we weren't under the other one in the first instance, and we were able to get an exemption to House Bill 2021, which is what regulates the electric sector emissions, because we have the clean Columbia River hydro as our system mix. So we're very much paying attention to that and making sure that we're not, the BPA type issues are addressed in whatever comes forward. And OBI seems amenable to that. They're really interested to see this pass. I think it's going to be a huge lift for a 35-day short session, but it seems to be a top priority, and Northwest Natural is the kind of the prime mover behind that, I'd say, in the OBI group. And then the last thing I've heard about, Lumen and some of the telecom companies are seeing a lot of issues with copper theft again. So they're trying to address that by having a registration program for selling metal to scrap yards. So we'll see if that makes it past the finish line, but just gives you an overview of some of the things in the electric utility space and the energy space. There's obviously a lot going on, and I think last year was a particularly busy year. So
right, I'd like to thank Jennifer. She also reached out to us in the water space and alerted us and some legislation that was going to really be an attack on local rate making, and so we worked with EWEB to beat that back. So that was, anyway, I'm just like,
yeah, I watch, I'm looking at all the bills as like get introduced. So if I see a water one, I usually, send it to your way or EWEB's way. So
Thank you. Great job.
thank you.
Thanks,
Jennifer.
Okay, there are no appearance requests on the agenda for tonight. There are 2 staff reports on the agenda. First, we're going to have our resource manager, Jamie Phillips, to update the commission. Hi, Jamie.
Hello, thank you. So September 30th, wrapped up the 2-year BPA rate period for fiscal years 24 and 25. And every rate period, McMinnville receives an energy efficiency incentive allocation from BPA to fund approved customer energy conservation measures. And so for the 2-year rate period, our EEI allocation was a little over $1.6 million. And McMinnville successfully used about 95% of that budget. The remaining 85,000 will roll over into the current rate period. Some high points of our program, we spent $1.5 million and achieved energy savings of 3.2 million kilowatt hours. That covered 374 customer projects, portion of them to our income qualified customers. Of note is a project completed with a 32 unit apartment complex where ductless heat pumps were installed in each unit where there wasn't anything before. So we have 5 more like projects coming here in this next rate period, which will amount to about $1 million of our current allocation.
Okay.
We funded 8 conservation loans valued around $55,000, and we also self-funded some enhancements to rebates. That was, we'll talk more about that here later on the agenda, but that was something we started last year in an effort to help fill the gap between the project cost and the rebate, and hopefully allow more customers to take advantage of some of these efficiency upgrades. So currently as of October 1st, we're in the final 3-year rate period of this contract. Typically we have 2 years, but because of the timing of the contract, we have a 3-year rate period. So our EEI allocation is about $2.6 million. And we plan to tackle those ductless heat pumps in the apartment complexes. That's a goal, and then also continue to offer the other incentives that are allowed by BPA.
Jamie, what help do we give an apartment owner for the ductless heat pumps?
We added $1,500.
And what does BPA give them then?
Well, for a low income customer like these were, they offer $6,000. So, but in this project, the contractor met the BPA rebate amount, so we didn't have to
Right.
tack on anything. It was fully paid.
So these numbers are it'd be close to free to have them installed.
They were free, yeah,
Right.
to the property owner.
Yeah.
The contractor agreed to
Okay.
do the work at the
Thank
rebate
you.
amount.
That's a wonderful thing for everybody.
Very much. So yes, we're looking forward to doing more of those. So we have another 166 units slated for ductless heat pumps here in the next rate period.
That's great. Good to help them, but it also lowers energy use.
And our goal is to get as much EE now between now and the end of the rate period so that we delay tier 2 and keep our rates as low as we can.
Right.
So.
And these savings, so this 3.2 million kilowatt hours, that amounts to 0.37 average megawatts compared to our total load of about 85 average megawatts. But those savings continue for the life of whatever the installation is. For these ductless heat pumps, it's 15 years that those savings are calculated. And so they add on to themselves, and we'll hope to achieve similar savings every year.
And the thought is the property owner would, at the end of 15 years, when it wears out, put another one in, right?
Yes,
Well,
or some other higher efficiency technology.
That's right.
Good point. A windmill on the.
Yeah, who knows? 15 years is a long time.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next we have Thad Woodworth, our IT manager.
Hello,
Hi, Thad.
what a pleasure it is to talk to you in open session.
Yes, that's
I
exactly.
comb my hair and everything. Well, what I
I was
have,
like,
it's a little thin. But, well, thank you. With the growing use and implementation of AI, both at work and at home use, staff recognizes the need to frame its use. With that in mind, it is a tool, and with any tool, there are proper ways to use it and to enhance our work here. This new standard practice, which is included within the commission packet, outlines these updated and adopted guidelines. An emphasis of this practice is to ensure that both customers and staff information remains secure. While AI has been already approved by or already used by the staff, this standard practice has been set to provide a framework for how AI is currently used and for future adherence to MW&L's values and goals. Finally, as mentioned earlier, this is a tool and is human driven. That means ultimately AI begins and ends with human input and review, and staff are responsible for its use and output. With that, are there any questions?
You have some?
You did this yourself, or did AI do it?
Nope, the AI was not consulted.
Thank you.
No questions? Wow. Yeah, that was a short presentation.
Thank you. Till next time.
Thank you. Next we have new business, and we have Oregon Clean Fuels Program to declare credit surplus. Jamie Phillips, will come back.
Jamie Shelton.
It's her show a lot.
All right. So I'm back with an update on our clean fuels program. Last spring, I spoke with you a little about the program, but it's managed by DEQ, and the standards, the intent being to reduce emissions from transportation fuels in Oregon. Regulated parties are importers or producers of transportation fuels like gas and diesel. And there are standards for compliance for those regulated parties. In 2019, McMinnville Water and Light first registered with the program as a credit generator and began reporting to generate credits for electric vehicles registered in our service territory. The credit generators are providers of fuel like electricity, whose carbon intensity is lower than the standard for gasoline and diesel. And credit generators are not required to participate. It's voluntary. But by registering with the program, we can receive credits. Those credits are calculated based on the number of EVs in our service territory and an estimate of the amount of electricity that they consume. And then the carbon intensity of the electricity in our utility area that is offsetting the fossil fuel. So on a semi-annual basis, DEQ calculates these credits and deposits them in our clean fuels program account. So we received the credits for the first 6 months of 2025 here in October, 1,242 clean fuel credits. And to date, Water and Light has sold our credits to the tune of around $660,000 of revenue. That revenue has been used to fund integrated resource plan for our utility. It's been used to fund the energy efficiency enhancements and some staff training. So staff is continually looking for opportunities to use that revenue in ways that widely benefit the ratepayer. So tonight, staff's requesting that the commission declare as surplus the 1,242 clean fuel credits awarded by DEQ for the first half of calendar year 2025, and authorize the general manager to approve a sale of these pursuant to the Water and Light public contracting policy, and the power manager, mayor, and clerk to sign as necessary.
Great. Sam, can you read the resolution?
This will be resolution number 2025-26, a resolution by the city of McMinnville acting by and through its Water and Light Commission declaring clean fuel credits surplus and authorizing and delegating to the general manager authority to sell these same clean fuel credits. That's 2025-26.
Do I have a motion? So moved. Lisa Macy Baker, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Tinkersley. Any questions from the commissioners? Okay, Trina?
Yes, Mayor Morris,
Yes.
Commissioner Tinkersley,
Yes.
Commissioner Elmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Macy Baker.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Amy, you're on again.
Okay. Excuse me. All right, next item is related to our energy efficiency program. Bonneville pursues energy efficiency as a resource, which is stated in the Northwest Power Act. And so at the beginning of each rate period, BPA allocates energy efficiency incentive dollars to each of its power customers to fund energy conservation. And the use of these dollars must follow the requirements of their implementation manual, which specifies the measures that are allowed and the obligations of the program for the participants. McMinnville Water and Light has developed a successful energy efficiency program, typically taking full advantage of the EEI allocation every rate period to pursue energy conservation. And we recognize energy efficiency as our lowest cost resource, and we're continually seeking ways to enhance our energy efficiency program to achieve greater energy savings. Investments in energy efficiency provide a valuable benefit to all of Water and Light's customers by reducing our power purchase costs that impact our retail electric rates. Last September, staff proposed and the commission authorized certain enhancements to customer rebates beyond the implementation manual levels set by BPA, using a portion of the revenue from the sale of clean fuel credits as a means of utility self-funding. The commission approved a program to offer $1,500 rebate enhancements to residential customers for qualified heat pump incentives. And that program was set to expire upon the expenditure of $100,000 or on September 30th, 2025, whichever occurred first. So as of September 30th, McMinnville paid out $69,150 in rebate enhancements, helping 46 Water and Light customers install more energy efficiency heat pumps. Currently, McMinnville has available funds of $496,540 from the sale of clean fuel credits. And the state of Oregon doesn't restrict how this revenue may be spent, allowing utilities to invest the dollars as they see fit. We'll continue to receive clean fuel credits semi-annually and pursue sales of these credits to maintain this consistent revenue stream. Staff is proposing to continue to offer the rebate enhancements for the residential heat pumps at the $1,500 level, and also expand the program to include enhancements for residential windows, doors, and insulation measures. These are among the most common measures for customers to pursue, and they add to the benefit of an energy efficiency heat pump by retaining that efficiency within the home. And these are also some of the projects that have the greatest disparity between the project cost and the rebate. Staff will use multiple avenues to promote the enhancements and communicate the offerings to contractors and community partners and our customers. The projects receiving the additional incentives will still need to meet the same requirements and the specifications outlined in the implementation manual. And any administrative fees withheld by McMinnville will be calculated only on the BPA rebate portion and not on the self-funded enhancement portion. So staff is proposing the allocation of $250,000 of clean fuel credit revenue to fund these enhancements to the BPA rebate amounts in the current rate period from October 1st, 2025 to September 30th, 2028 for the residential measures I mentioned, and they're detailed in the table in your packet. And should these funds be exhausted before the end of the rate period, staff will revisit with the commission on whether we would like to commit more utility dollars or consider other rebate enhancements. And the total rebate will not exceed the project cost. So we'll be up to that point. We won't be anybody a windfall. Are there any questions?
No.
I have a
Oh,
comment.
yeah.
Staff has done a great job historically, and you've continued it with energy efficiency in these programs. I remember when the BPA program first started, I think it was the second year, we spent we gave out more rebates than anybody in the whole BPA system except Seattle. And because of that, they changed the formula, so we couldn't do that every year. But I really appreciate staff being on top of this for so long and staying on top of it. So thank you. Benefits us, as John says, from the tier 2, and more importantly, our ratepayers.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good job, Jamie. Sam?
Yes, this is resolution number 2025-27, a resolution by the city of McMinnville acting by through its Water and Light Commission, self-funding energy efficiency is 2025-27.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'm gonna go with Tinkersley, and you want to be the second? Commissioner Elmer? Any questions? Rena?
Yes, Mayor Morris,
Yes.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Yes.
Commissioner Elmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Macy Baker.
Yes.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have general manager report that's in your packet. Did anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Are there any comments, any additional comments from commissioners that they'd like to say tonight?
I might have one thing, if anybody else has anything.
Okay.
I think so. We're pending the general manager's review. So you've received, I think from me, the form of review document.
Mhm.
I still have some more documents to share with you. We're going to get you the GM's goals for this next year. I know John's going to be working on those this week. And we just recently received the Milliman salary survey, which I will get to you in the next couple of days. I'll just tell you, it's a proprietary document, so it's something you don't want to publish or share publicly. You'll get a portion of it. You won't get the whole 60-page document. You'll get that portion of it that's related to the general manager salary survey. The data in it generally, it maybe is a lot much of it's public data, but it's collected by Milliman, and we buy it. We pay thousands of dollars each year to get the survey. So anyway, and we'll talk about that later, that survey later, probably in an executive session. But anyway, when you have a chance, you can get to the review document and start working on those. I think in the near future, in November, we're going to need to have a executive session to review the general manager's performance. So I think Trina will probably be contacting you in the near future, either to decide whether we're going to be doing that as a kind of a workshop before a meeting, or we'll be setting a special meeting for that. But I'll be working with Commissioner Elmer once I get those reviews back to sort of put together a draft review document. But if you could start to work on those, and in the next couple of weeks get those review documents back to me so I can put those together, we'll get that date set in the near future.
Okay, thank you. The financial information is in your packet. Are there any questions from any commissioners on that? Nope. Okay. We'll now be going into executive session. There is no further action to be taken by the commission this evening, so we will not be returning to open session. I'd like to ask Counsel Sam Justice to please read the citation to take us into executive session.
Hey, this evening, we're going to go into executive session on 3 different matters. First, we're going to do a session pursuant to ORS 192-660 sub 2 sub E to conduct deliberations with persons designated to negotiate real property transactions. A second session will be held pursuant to ORS 192-660 sub 2 sub F to discuss information or records that are exempt from public disclosure under ORS 192-355 sub 9 sub A relating to confidential privilege records and ORS 40-225 attorney-client communications. Finally, a third session pursuant to ORS 196-60 sub 2 sub F, matters exempt from public inspection under 192-345 sub 12 regarding personal discipline action or materials and documents supporting such an action. As Madam Mayor said, we do not intend to return to an open session. If there are any media with us tonight, they're cautioned not to share or talk about or share outside of the meeting any information that's subject to these record exceptions or public meeting exceptions. And with that, we'll also be adjourning the meeting in closed session.